Hey friends! Today I've got a tale to share with you, a journey filled with emotion and unexpected turns. I hope it captures your attention and keeps you with me until the last word. Ready? Let's dive in. As the soft evening glow settled over the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, Mary stood amidst the grandeur of the gala, taking a deep breath of satisfaction. Her exhibition, a dialogue between ancient and modern, had officially launched. One by one, influential figures from the art world approached her with warm congratulations. Mary had poured 10 years into building her career as a curator. Clad in a sleek black silk gown, she carried herself with calm authority, someone who had earned the space she stood in. Jennifer, a close colleague, came over with a glass of champagne. "Mary, this is phenomenal. I think this exhibit is going to be the year's crown jewel," she said with a gleam of admiration. "Thank you," Mary replied, smiling. "It's surreal to see it finally come together after 3 years of work." There was a brief pause before Jennifer asked, "So, when's your sister getting married?" A shadow crossed Mary's face for just a second. "Next month," she said flatly, then steered the conversation elsewhere. But that wasn't true. In reality, Mary had no idea. The truth was, her relationship with her younger sister, Rebecca, was anything but simple. Patricia, a high-powered real estate agent known for selling luxury Manhattan properties, had always craved the spotlight. Vivacious, magnetic, and effortlessly social, she knew how to draw a crowd. Mary, on the other hand, preferred quiet contemplation, books, conversations that mattered, and the solace of art. Their parents, Robert and Linda, lived in a beautiful Connecticut suburb, enjoying the fruits of Robert's success in investment banking and Linda's status in social circles and charitable organizations. On the surface, they looked like a model family. Smiling photos, holiday cards, and polished appearances. But beneath the perfection was a familiar imbalance. Since childhood, Patricia had been the favorite. Her outgoing charm and moments of vulnerability drew constant attention and affection. Mary, meanwhile, was seen as the independent one, the reliable child who didn't need much from anyone. "Mary is brilliant, she'll always land on her feet," Linda would say. "But Patricia needs us." Those sentiments never changed. Not when Mary graduated top of her class. Not when her thesis made waves in international art circles. Not even when she earned the title of curator. Her triumphs were treated as routine. Patricia's smallest victories sparked champagne and praise. No one pressured Mary about dating or marriage. She'd always been academically driven and professionally focused. She'd had a few relationships in her 20s and early 30s, but none that reached the depths she craved. Her parents voiced vague concern about her being alone, but never seemed surprised. Patricia, meanwhile, was the emotional centerpiece when it came to love. Every relationship of hers was dissected, every heartbreak met with empathy, and often financial aid. Then, 7 months ago, Patricia announced her engagement to James, a charismatic investment banker from an equally esteemed family. The news arrived with flourish and excitement. When Mary met James at the engagement party, something felt off. His charming smile, his practiced speech, and the way he looked at her all triggered a strange unease. "Have we met before?" Mary wondered. Still, she pushed the feeling down. If Patricia's happy, that's what matters. But the discomfort would soon unravel something deeper. Something that would upend her world and her family ties. As the gala came to an end, Mary glanced at her phone. No messages from her parents. No call from Patricia. Not even a simple "congratulations." Silence. It wasn't new. But tonight was different. Tonight was supposed to matter. She finished her champagne and prepared to slip back into her normal life. A week later, on a quiet Thursday evening, Mary curled up on her couch, a glass of red wine nearby. She opened Instagram, absent-mindedly scrolling, until she froze. There it was, a photo posted by her friend Sophia, tagged #JamesWedding. A beautiful church dressed in white blooms. A tower of champagne. Patricia and James, glowing in the center of it all. Patricia wore a flawless designer gown, smiling like a woman who had it all. Mary blinked, then checked the date. The post was from last Saturday, the exact day of her museum's gala. She began scrolling faster. More photos followed. The venue, cake, guest dancing. And her parents, Linda beaming in couture, Robert proud in a crisp tuxedo. And that's when it hit her. The wedding had happened. And she hadn't been invited. This can't be right, Mary thought. Maybe the invitation got lost. Maybe they didn't have my current address. But she'd been in the same apartment for years. Everyone knew that. Her hands shook as she dialed her mother's number. The phone rang. And rang. No answer. Her father's number was no different. Calls went unanswered. At last, Mary tried Patricia's phone, but it instantly went to voicemail. She set her smartphone down and gazed again at the Instagram images. Everyone in the photos appeared joyful, sharing moments of celebration. None betrayed a hint of missing her. Over the weekend, Mary sent message after message and made numerous calls, but her family remained silent. On Monday, she forced herself to focus on work, yet the ache in her chest only deepened. By Wednesday afternoon, she made a firm decision. She would drive to her parents' home in Connecticut. After requesting Friday off, Mary left Thursday evening and arrived at the familiar white, 3-story house shortly after 7 p.m. The exterior was unchanged, but stepping inside, Mary immediately sensed something had shifted. A large wedding portrait dominated the entryway. Patricia and James hand in hand before the altar. In the corner stood her parents, beaming with pride. Not a trace of Mary. From the living room, Linda emerged, startled. "What are you doing here? You should have called first." Mary steadied herself and said, "I saw Patricia's wedding took place. Why wasn't I told?" Linda paused, then gave a shrug. "Oh, that was a last-minute change. We had to move it up because of James's work schedule. We meant to tell you, but you were busy as usual, right?" "That's not true," Mary said, trying to keep her hands from trembling. "You knew about my exhibition months ago. But I wasn't invited." "Why?" Robert appeared, looking puzzled. "Mary, what brings you here unannounced?" "Dad, why wasn't I invited to Patricia's wedding?" Mary asked, her gaze flickering between her parents. A thick silence settled. Linda and Robert exchanged looks loaded with unspoken meaning. Finally, Linda sighed. "To be honest, as a single woman, it just didn't feel right. We didn't invite you because it would have been embarrassing." The word stabbed sharply at Mary's heart. Embarrassing. What could possibly be embarrassing? "It was Patricia's big day," Linda said, her voice edged with irritation. "James's family and friends are all successful couples. Having you there alone, single and career-focused, would have made everyone uncomfortable." Mary was speechless. Was her independence, her success, even her very presence, a source of shame? "Look, don't dwell on it," Linda continued. "This day was all about Patricia. Everything had to be flawless." "Are you saying I'm the flaw?" Mary's voice shook. Robert cut in. "A wedding is just a ceremony. You weren't invited, but does that really change anything? Your life goes on as before." Mary looked into her father's eyes, the same eyes that once held pride and warmth. Now only cold indifference stared back. "You're right," she said softly. "My life hasn't changed. But what has changed is how you see me. As family." Without another word, Mary turned and headed for the front door. "Mary, don't be so sensitive," Linda called after her. "Patricia's always needed extra attention. You've always been independent and strong. I'm surprised you're upset over something so trivial." Mary stopped and faced her. "Trivial?" Her tone was calm, but beneath it simmered a quiet fury. "Being erased from your family, treated like I don't exist, that's trivial?" "You're overreacting," Linda waved dismissively. "Anyway, the wedding was beautiful. It cost over $50,000, and every penny was worth it." Mary silently opened the door and stepped outside. The cool night air brushed against her flushed cheeks. Before climbing into her car, she glanced back at the warm lights glowing through the windows, the home she once belonged to. Now, she was nothing more than a stranger there. Back in her apartment, Mary stared at the Instagram photos once more, and tears spilled freely. The happy faces, the lavish decorations, the space where she had no place. Amid the sorrow and anger, her resolve hardened. I am no longer a victim, she thought. The next morning came with an unexpected knock at her door. When Mary opened it, Patricia stood there, a designer bag slung over her shoulder, wearing a smug grin. "Surprise!" Patricia announced cheerfully. "I came to visit. Mind if I come in?" Without waiting for an invitation, Patricia stepped inside, removing her shoes as she went. She wore a shiny pink blouse paired with designer jeans, and a large diamond ring sparkled on her finger. Mary silently widened the door to let her sister enter. A swirl of emotions churned inside her, but her face remained composed. "Coffee?" Mary offered flatly. "Sure. Decaf, oat milk, no sugar," Patricia replied, settling on the couch. "I'm on a post-honeymoon diet." While brewing coffee in the kitchen, Mary took deep, steadying breaths. The humiliating conversation from last night was still fresh in her mind. But now, with Patricia in her apartment, Mary felt this might be her chance to get to the root of everything. "It was a beautiful party," Mary said, handing over the cup. Patricia beamed. "Absolutely perfect. Mom and Dad really pulled out all the stops." She reached into her bag and produced a glossy wedding album. "Look at these photos. A professional photographer took them. Aren't they amazing?" Mary flipped through the pictures quietly. The solemn church ceremony, the lavish reception venue, her parents' joyful dancing, and smiling photos of Patricia and James flashed one after another. But Mary's eyes lingered on James's face. There was something off, a subtle tension beneath his smile that unsettled her. "It was the best day ever," Patricia declared triumphantly. Then, with a sharp edge to her voice, she added, "Something you'll never have, big sister." The words hung heavy in the air. Mary looked up from the photos and met Patricia's gaze. The playful girl she once knew was gone, replaced by a cold, unfamiliar stranger. "I'm sorry," Mary said softly. "I should feel happy for you. But right now I don't feel anything." Patricia sighed, dismissive. "Just like Mom said, you're jealous because I'm married and you're still single." "Jealous?" Mary gave a bitter smile. "I have no problem with your marriage. The problem is I was excluded. As family. The invitation. Mom already told you, plans changed." "That's not true," Mary said, voice icy. "I saw the social media posts. The wedding was planned months ago." Patricia faltered for a moment, then shrugged. "Well, if that's so, then yes. James and I decided not to invite you. It was our day. Having you there would have changed the atmosphere." Mary swallowed the anger rising in her throat and shifted tactics. "Tell me about James. Is his family from New York?" "Yeah. Sort of," Patricia answered vaguely. "He works in investment banking. Travels a lot." Mary studied James's face again, then something clicked. "I remember seeing him at a museum fundraiser years ago, but he used a different name then." Patricia glanced at her, unease flickering briefly. "He's away on business trips 2 or 3 times a week. Last week, he was in New Jersey." Mary stored that detail carefully. She had a friend, Marcus, a private investigator who had helped her verify artwork authenticity in the past. Patricia stood, slinging her bag over her shoulder. "I have to go, spa appointment. But I ordered extra copies of the album. I'll give you one. A keepsake from our perfect day." She left with a smug smile. As soon as the door shut behind her, Mary's expression hardened. She grabbed her phone and called Marcus. The next day, Mary met Marcus at the museum. "I need you to investigate an old acquaintance," she said. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "This is different. You usually ask about art." "This is personal," Mary replied, voice serious. "I think something's wrong." 3 days later, Marcus called. Your instincts were right, he said. James also goes by Michael Harris. He's not with Goldman Sachs. He's an independent investment advisor with multiple identities. Mary's stomach twisted. What else? He frequently visits Montclair, New Jersey. I'm digging deeper. Mary thanked him and urged him to keep going. That weekend, she drove to Montclair herself. The town was quiet, leafy, with charming colonial houses. She parked before a small home where Marcus's information had led her. A tricycle and a child's bike sat near the porch. Her heart raced. She waited, watching. At 2 p.m., the door opened, and a small boy stepped out, followed by a graceful woman with golden hair tied back. She held the boy's hand and headed toward the nearby park. Mary made a decision. She followed discreetly. At the park, the woman led the boy to the playground and sat on a bench. Mary approached and took the empty seat beside her. What a lovely child, Mary said gently. Thank you, the woman smiled warmly. John turns 8 soon. Their conversation eased naturally. The woman introduced herself as Samantha. After a few minutes, Mary looked at her steadily. I have to ask. About your husband, Michael Harris. Samantha's smile faltered. Her body stiffened. Who are you? She asked cautiously. My name is Mary, Mary said softly. Last week, my sister married a man named James. I believe he's the same man as your husband. Samantha went pale and pulled out her phone. This man? She asked, showing Mary a photo. It was James. Yes, Mary whispered. Tears filled Samantha's eyes. We married 10 years ago. He always said he was traveling for work. Her voice cracked. I trusted him. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Samantha showed Mary marriage and birth certificates, old family pictures. James had been living a double life. He said he spent half the week at his New York office, Samantha said tearfully. Sometimes he claimed to be overseas. They exchanged numbers and promised to keep in touch. Mary received a copy of a family photo from Samantha. It was taken at John's birthday party, showing James embracing his wife and their young son. This was just last month, Samantha said quietly. He never told us about his marriage to Patricia. He planned to keep living this double life. On the drive back to New York, Mary's heart swirled with anger, sadness, and deep concern for her sister. She knew she had to reveal the truth to Patricia and their parents. But how? When she arrived at her apartment, there was already a message from Patricia. I'll visit tomorrow. The wedding album is ready. Mary took a deep breath. Tomorrow the truth would come out. She placed Samantha's photos on the table and prepared herself. The next afternoon, Patricia knocked on the door, glamorous in designer sunglasses and a sleek dress. Delivery, she called cheerfully. Mary opened the door and silently invited her in. Her face set with quiet determination. Coffee or wine? Wine, Patricia answered brightly. Married life is wonderful. James is the perfect husband. Last night he cooked a special dinner for me. As Mary poured wine into 2 glasses, her eyes flicked to the photos in the envelope on the table. Here's the wedding album, Patricia said, producing a luxurious leather-bound book. Mom ordered it specially. I had a copy made for you too. Mary took the album and leafed through page after page of carefully composed memories. The last photo was a large one of James kissing Patricia. Tell me about James, Mary said gently. James. Patricia beamed. Harvard Business School graduate, very successful in finance. We're about to buy a luxury condo in Manhattan when his bonus comes. Does he travel often? He's busy, yes, but that's success, right? Patricia laughed, brushing back her hair. Sometimes I feel lonely, but that's marriage. Mary quietly pulled the envelope closer. Patricia, there's something I need to show you. A present. Patricia smiled, playful. Mary set down a photo from the envelope. James hugging a woman and a small boy, smiling in front of a birthday cake. Patricia's smile vanished. Her face turned pale. "What is this?" she whispered. "A photo taken last month," Mary said calmly. "In Montclair, New Jersey." Patricia's voice trembled. "It's photoshopped. Someone's trying to frame James." "No," Mary said firmly. "The woman is Samantha Harris. She married Michael Harris 10 years ago. That's their son, John." Patricia shook her head violently. "Lies. You just don't want me to be happy. You're jealous." She pulled out her phone and dialed. "James, come here now. Mary is saying ridiculous things." James's confused voice came through the line. Patricia hung up. "He's on his way. Then your lies will be exposed." Mary pulled out more documents from the envelope. "This is Samantha and Michael's marriage certificate. And John's birth certificate. His father's name is Michael Harris." Patricia flipped through the papers, hands shaking. "These are forged," she cried, though doubt crept into her voice. "James's real name is Michael Harris," Mary said quietly. "He's been living a double life, with a wife and child he hid from you." 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang. James stood in the doorway, his confident mask shattered by anxiety. "What's going on?" he asked, stepping inside. When he saw the photos and documents spread on the table, his face paled. "Michael Harris or James? What's your real name?" Mary asked, eyes locked on him. "Patricia, it's a misunderstanding," James said quickly, turning to her. "I can explain." "Explain." Patricia's voice shook. "Who's the woman and child in this photo?" James wiped sweat from his brow, fumbling for excuses. "That's my sister. And her child. The photo's old." "Lies," Mary interrupted, pulling out her phone. "I met Samantha yesterday. I have messages and recordings." She played a voice recording. Samantha's voice filled the room. "Michael and I married in 2013. He worked in New York half the week. John was born in 2016. Michael's a wonderful father when he's home." James's face drained of color. "Patricia, I can explain." Before he could finish, Patricia slapped him hard. 10 years of a double life. And a child. What was our marriage? A lie. "I love you," James pleaded. "When my business failed, I was in debt. I planned to end things with Samantha." "Planned?" Patricia's voice was sharp. "You were celebrating your son's birthday last month with her." In the chaos, Patricia called their parents. Linda and Robert arrived quickly, their faces a mixture of confusion and anger. "We spent over $50,000 on this wedding," Linda exclaimed. Linda's voice trembled as she said, "And you were already married?" James opened his mouth to defend himself, but Mary cut him off. "This is from Marcus, the investigator. James or Michael Harris, you were involved in real estate investment fraud." The room fell silent, thick with shock. Robert slammed his fist on a chair. "You deceived my daughter, and you stole from us." James's demeanor shifted suddenly, colder now. "This is all Mary's doing. She's jealous that Patricia found happiness." "No," Patricia said softly, looking at Mary. "Mary was protecting me." She turned to their parents. "I did terrible things to her. I excluded her from the wedding. I accused her of jealousy, but she uncovered the truth." Linda and Robert exchanged guilty looks. "We owe you an apology," Linda whispered, voice thick. James headed for the door. "Happy now? You've reunited your family," he sneered. "But I don't give up easily. This isn't over." "I'll report your fraud to the police," Mary said firmly. James gave a sinister smile and left. Silence hung in the room. Then Patricia began to cry softly. Without hesitation, Mary pulled her sister into an embrace. "We always took you for granted," Linda finally said. "You were strong and independent. But that's no excuse to exclude you," Robert added. "We lost you as family, and today you showed us what family really means." Patricia looked at Mary through tears. "You investigated for me, found the truth, despite everything." Mary smiled gently. You're my sister. That's all the reason I need. That night, the family talked late into the evening, about past wounds, misunderstandings, and hopes for healing. The cracks began to mend. In their darkest hour, they were trying to become one again. 6 months later, spring was in full bloom at their parents' Connecticut home. Mary sat on the terrace, admiring the garden her father had lovingly tended. "Here's your tea." Linda approached with a warm cup, her old arrogance replaced by quiet kindness. "Thank you, Mom." Mary smiled as she accepted it. Linda sat beside her, taking a deep breath. "I've thought a lot these past months, especially about how unfair I was to you." Mary took her mother's hand. "We all make mistakes. You always met our expectations," Linda continued. "We took your strength for granted and ignored your feelings." The terrace door opened and Patricia appeared, not in flashy clothes but a simple blouse and jeans, serenity softening her features. "We have an hour until counseling," Patricia smiled at Mary. After James's double life was revealed, Patricia had fallen into deep sadness. With therapy, she was beginning to heal. Divorce proceedings were underway, but she was reclaiming her life. "I got an email from Samantha," Patricia said quietly. "John did well in his school presentation." Surprisingly, Patricia and Samantha had formed a gentle friendship, two women united by pain, supporting each other as victims of deceit. "What about Michael's trial?" Mary asked. Robert came out from the living room. "The verdict is next month. For investment fraud and bigamy. He faces significant jail time." James's arrest and crimes had made headlines. The investigation uncovered he had defrauded several women. "Is David coming?" Patricia asked, smiling at Mary. Mary's cheeks flushed slightly. "Yes. He'll pick me up at 7. David Morrison, the museum's new fundraising director, had grown close to Mary over the past months. Gentle, intellectual, and deeply understanding of her passions. "He's really trying to impress us," Linda said warmly. "The flowers he brought last week were lovely." "He's a good man," Mary said softly. "But I'm not rushing." "Your happiness is what matters," Robert said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "No more expectations." That evening, the family gathered around the dinner table. David joined them, and the conversation flowed gently. Mary looked around, a deep satisfaction filling her heart. Through tragedy and pain, her family had found true connection again. "Let's toast," Robert said, raising his glass. "To our family, and especially to Mary. Your courage and love saved us." Glasses clinked softly. Mary exchanged a smile with Patricia, a shared understanding, a bond renewed. As sisters, they finally felt the true strength of family. Outside the window, the sun dipped low, promising a new day, a fresh beginning.